Hi guys, this is Mary. Meredith and I did our project on teaching Latino students. So we just want to remind you to follow along with your worksheet. The handout is of questions that will help you gather the important information that we want you to get out of our lecture. So before you start this lecture, go ahead and read through all the questions so that whenever you get to that part in the lecture, you can pause the lecture and jot down your thoughts and your reactions to what we're talking about or the videos that you're going to be watching. And then that'll just help you gather your thoughts and information that you're getting from this lecture. So first, we just want to build background. I want you guys to think of your personal experiences with Latino students or just Latino people in general. Do you know anybody personally that is Latino? Have you spent a lot of time with Latinos in school or other activities? And if you have, what are Latinos like? What do they seem to value? So I want you to think about that answer for a little bit and then go ahead and pause this lecture here and watch the first YouTube video. And while you're watching that, just make sure that you're thinking how you think of Latinos and how these Latinos in the video are going to talk differently about their different experiences and how they've been treated in America. This slide just is a list of some basic stereotypes that we tend to associate with Latinos. The first one is that they're not capable of learning American material, and that kind of goes for any immigrants, whether that's Latinos or other races, ethnicities, whatever it may be. We tend to think that because they are fighting a language barrier that they can't learn things at an American level, but this actually is very untrue. Immigrants tend to be bilingual, especially Latinos. Whenever they're coming to America, they're learning English. They are trying to differentiate between English and Spanish and figure out that barrier and break that down so that they can fully engage in our schools. So to say that they're not capable of learning American material is unfair to them, and we need to provide them with an equal education and push them to be the best they can be. Another stereotype that we tend to think is that they're all Mexican. So right now I want you to think back to that video that you just watched, and there were a lot of different people in that video and just how different they look, different ways they talk, different things they said. They're all very unique. They're not all from Mexico. We tend to think that as Americans that every Latino is Mexican, but that's very untrue. And one of the quotes from one of the people on the video that stuck out to me was whenever they said, "I am from this earth." And I think that's very important for us as educators, and especially Christian educators, to keep in our minds whenever we get out into our schools and our classrooms later on in life, that we're all from this earth, whether we're Latino, American, Asian, whatever we may be. When we come into that classroom, we are students, we are teachers, we are learning from each other, and they deserve the same opportunities that we're giving to every student. Another stereotype is that they all work in landscaping businesses or they're addicted to drugs. And both of these prove to be wrong as well, especially the one that they're addicted to drugs. White people actually use drugs more than minorities, but minorities are arrested more often than white people are. So we tend to think that they use it more, but we white people use it more than minorities do. And the last one that is become very common since the most recent election is that they're all illegal immigrants. And a statistic that'll be shared later on is that 95% of Latinos in schools, in American schools today, do have papers. They are American citizens. So that's also very untrue that they're all illegal immigrants. The majority of them are legal. So we need to keep that in mind whenever we're interacting with them in school, whether it be parents, students, other teachers, administrators. We need to keep that in mind. They're not illegal immigrants. They all have papers and they worked hard to become citizens of America. So the second stereotype that was listed on the last slide was that they are all Mexican. And this slide is just a list of the many countries that Latinos come from, and the ones that are highlighted in green on that globe are the Latin countries. So there's North and Central America, where there's a lot of different countries that Latinos can come from, and then South America is obviously the biggest one. And within that, you can see where a lot of people can come from in that, in the Caribbean as well, with just three little small countries. But these Latino people can come from many different backgrounds, many different cultures. It's not all from Mexico. They don't all have the same culture. Just as an example, people from Brazil don't speak the same language that they do in Haiti, and they don't speak the same language that they do in the Dominican. So it's important to keep in mind that they don't all just speak Spanish. They don't all just speak this flatline Spanish that we may have learned in high school. They come from a different country, they come from a different cultural background. So it's important to get to know your students and get to know where they came from in order to best serve them. And this is similar to how we identify in America as well. Like, I would say I'm from Pennsylvania, and people might say that I have a Western Pennsylvania accent, whereas somebody from Alabama might have a very thick Southern accent. And even within Pennsylvania, people from Western Pennsylvania and people from Eastern Pennsylvania use different words to describe different things. And we just need to recognize that people that are Latino that are coming into our schools are going to have different backgrounds. They're going to have different words for different things and different experiences. Just because they're Latino is not just a blanket. They all experience the same thing. They come from different experiences, different backgrounds. So it's important to recognize that in your classroom. This slide just shows you some different parts of Latino culture. The cultural norms is the biggest one that's different than America, is that time isn't important to them. They don't follow strict time schedules. They just kind of go with the flow rather than keeping on the same strict time schedule for every day. And that's hard for Americans to understand because we follow a very strict time schedule. With that, they, in the middle of their day, lunch is their biggest meal. So they'll eat a really big lunch and then they'll take a nap or relax for like an hour. And then they'll keep working and then go home and have dinner really late at night. It'll be a small meal. For Americans, we eat a small lunch and get back to work really quickly. And then we get done with our day, go home, eat dinner, go to bed. So it's very different. We follow a very strict schedule. They just kind of go with the flow of the day. They also stand really close to the person they're talking to, and they're more touchy than Americans. And with that, I just mean that when they're talking to you, they might touch your arm, they might touch your back. That physical touch is important to them in making that relationship and building that trust. They do stand very close to you, but that's also just normal to them. They're just trying to show that they're interested and they're engaged in the conversation. They also talk very fast and talk over each other, and they interrupt each other. So that's another one that's hard for Americans to get used to, because in America it's disrespectful to interrupt each other and talk over each other. But for Latinos, that's completely normal. It's what they do. It's not disrespectful at all in their culture. That's just how you get your 2 cents in. You just keep talking and talking, and nobody finds that disrespectful. It's just normal to them. Their greetings, for women, they kiss each other on the cheek. They always. So actually at the beginning of this summer, I had the opportunity to do an occupational ministry and help in a preschool in the Dominican. And when we were down there, after the kids would leave, we would walk around the community and talk to the people of the community. And they didn't even know me, and I didn't even speak their language. And if it was a woman meeting me, she'd kiss my cheek immediately and then do it the same way whenever we would leave. So it does create more of a personal relationship. It made me feel very welcome in their home. Whereas Americans were just kind of very standoffish, especially to strangers entering your home, especially if they don't speak your language. So that was a big thing for me, was they did make everybody feel accepted, even though we spoke English, they spoke Spanish. And then the last thing is just that dancing is an important aspect of many Latin cultures. There's many different holidays and festivals that are celebrated in all different countries that are centered around dance. They really like that outward expression of what they're feeling, how they're excited, how they're celebrating something. That outward expression is very important to them. They have the chance to show how they're feeling and not just say it, but to show it through the dance. These are just some values that Latino cultures have. The biggest one for them is family. They really value the tight-knit family, close relationships with each other, and they're slow to trust those that are outside of their family and outside of their close friends. So it's important to build that relationship with the Latino students in your classroom to make sure that you can talk to them about anything and they can approach you about what they need more help in class, or they might need more support in a certain subject or some more things translated, but they won't tell you that if they don't trust you. So it's important to make that relationship so that they do trust you. Another very important value to them is religion. So they will identify who they are through their religion. So it might be similar to something that we as Christians might do, but that's not as normal in America as it is in Latin cultures. Another big value is respecting their elders. So with that, whenever you're meeting parents of students or grandparents or family members, friends, whatever it may be, make sure that you are still using Mr. and Mrs. and Miss or whatever title they want you to use. Don't jump right to a first name basis as we tend to do in America. We jump to that first name very quickly after meeting somebody, but for Latinos, it's more important to keep that respect. Also, it's very important to greet people with a proper greeting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you? Something like that. It's just to make that connection with somebody, build that relationship. And along with that, relationships are more important to them than getting a task done. So for Americans, it's like we have a to-do list, and we are going to get that to-do list done as quickly as we can. In Latino cultures, it's very different. They're more focused on building relationships with people, talking to people, learning who they are, getting to know them, than finishing a task. So just keep that in mind in class. Don't try to allow time for Latino students to talk to each other and get to know each other and get to know you, rather than following a strict schedule of getting everything done and busting all this schoolwork out. Give them time to get to know each other and make your classroom a comfortable place where they can talk and be engaged in conversations. These are just some statistics on Latino students. So the first one is that SAT scores for Latinos were significantly lower than that of the whites and Asian students in all subjects, and that was as of 2014 and 2015. So across reading, writing, math, they were very far behind. There was a very big gap between Latino students and white and Asian students. And as we try to bridge that gap, we end up just raising the white and Asian students as well, so that gap stays the same, even though Latino students' scores are getting higher, but so are the whites and so are the Asians' scores. So we're keeping that gap there, even though we're raising up their scores. They also have a higher dropout rate than white students, but that dropout rate has drastically declined since 2000. So things are being changed and there are steps being made, but there's still a huge difference between the dropout rate for Latino students and the dropout rate for white students. And along with that, only 15% of Latinos have a bachelor's degree that are between the ages 25 to 29. And that's a big difference than 63% of white people who have bachelor's degree between ages 25 to 29. And that difference can be because of the fact that Latinos tend to choose a 2-year program, whether that be a trade school or just an associate's degree. They tend to choose a 2-year program rather than a 4-year. So there is that difference. Or they do drop out of high school more often than white students. So they're more likely to not continue on to college. And this graph just shows the dropout rate. So as you can see, the Hispanics started up at around like 28% in 2000. And that's just continued to decline and decline. And now we're below 10%, which is great. It's a huge, huge difference. But that's still higher than whites. White people are probably about 7%, where Latinos are like 10, 11%, around there. So it's important to keep that in mind and try to create that passion for school in your students, whether that be in kindergarten or that be in 10th grade or in college. And this slide is just about Latinos in America today. So actually, California is the most segregated for Latino students as of 2015. So with that just means that schools are a lot more segregated, whether it's on purpose or not. It's just the zip codes that attend those schools tend to be a Latin community, strictly Latin or strictly white or strictly African American. They tend to stay in their little bubbles. And with that, Latinos generally do attend a school that's 84% non-white and also is in an area of high poverty. And then below that, 62% of Latinos under 18 are living in poverty. So that goes along with how they live in